With the injury bug officially biting Austin Hayes, we got the update on what his timeline will be and a flurry of moves from Dave Dombrowski and Rob Thomson to correct the issues with the team, including a couple familiar faces such as Derek Hall, which we will break down what exactly went down with this Phillies team, how everything's going to shake out, who will step up, and what the real impact is. But before we dive fully into it, do want to make sure you guys are smashing that subscribe button right there. Right now, 93.5% of you guys tuning into these videos have not hit that subscribe button on the channel just yet. We want to get everyone along for this ride with this Phillies Digest team, get even everyone a part of the family, so make sure you're hitting that button there. Now, to get into the topic of today, Austin Hayes hitting the 10-day IL will be over on August 8th there with the hamstring strained. And to correct it, we've seen the Phillies. Cal Stevenson's contract was selected from AAA. Colby Allard was optioned to AAA. Max Lazard contract selected from AAA. We got Derek Hall DFA'd and Max Castillo DFA'd. So, Luke, to toss you the keys and let you run with this real quick, what from this flurry of moves stands out to you?
Yeah, there's a few things. One, just Hayes going on the 10-day doesn't lead me to believe it's anything serious. It didn't seem like I feel like if it was something truly serious, I think he would have went on the IL yesterday. Two, probably would have went on the 15-day.
Yeah.
So it doesn't seem like anything too crazy serious there. The Phillies seems like they dodged another soft tissue major injury. Feels like there's been 100 of them this year. Cal Stevenson, contract selected. Definitely interesting to me. I thought there were some guys that would have maybe got the call before him, but I think it's worth giving the guy a shot. He's hitting 307 this year down in AAA, 7 home runs, 39 RBIs. With a 908 OPS. He's hitting the ball well. The nice thing is he's a left-handed bat. So it'll be nice to maybe have a little left fielder or a left-handed bat off the bench, have another outfielder up here now. Colby Allard optioned. I think we all knew that was going to happen after the news that Walker his first start will be back on Tuesday. So like we talked about yesterday, our boy Taiwan Walker will be back this coming week.
Hopefully with
As
a
far as
splitter.
Lazar, yeah, I can't wait. Let me tell you, I can't wait. Derek Hall DFA'd. Just kind of one of those quadruple A guys.
Yeah.
Raked in triple A, just couldn't really find the consistency in the pros. A lot of strikeouts, a lot of pop-ups, a lot of groundouts. Just one of the situations that listen, he gave the Phillies a nice little run the beginning of last season, obviously when the Phillies lost Rhys Hoskins and Bryce Harper wasn't ready to play first base yet. It was kind of that mix of, Derek Hall, Clemens, Alec Boehm. Derek Hall last year in 142 plate appearances at the beginning of that 2020, or at least in 2022, back in that year, 9 homers and 16 RBIs in 41 games. Last year definitely struggled in those games that he got the opportunity. But just a guy that couldn't really find it in the pros. And really the Phillies don't really need more first basemen, right? They have Bryce, they have Boehm who can play there. They have Cody Clemens who can play there, who's I would trust his bat more than Derek Hall at the pro level. Max Castillo, nothing really there. Wasn't really going to be much of a piece. And then as far as Max Lazar, he's the interesting one to me. He has a 1.79 ERA in 34 games this year down in the minors. I believe it's at a 2.4 in AAA. And he actually had a 0 ERA in 8 AA starts before getting the call up. He's only 25 years old. I think there could be something here.
Okay.
40 innings pitched, 53 strikeouts, a whip at 0.84. Really, really good stats from Lazar. I think this could be a move that we look at, not necessarily in a Ryan Kerkering type of thing like last year, but I think I wouldn't be surprised if this guy makes it onto the postseason roster. I think right now, I think they're going to trust him more than a guy like Junior Marte and a guy like Jose Ruiz. At least I think. I think he's earned at least a call up. And if the stuff translates up to the pros, I think this guy could throw some innings here for us. So yeah, I mean, there were definitely a lot of moves today. Not really any like groundbreaking ones, but as far as the two call ups in Stevenson and Lazar, I think probably the right thing to do. As far as the Scott Kingery thing, like we talked about yesterday, he's just not really an outfielder anymore. played a ton of infield. And I know, like you said, probably one of the dumbest things he could have done was just commit to playing the infield,
Yeah.
because that guy needs to try anything he can to get back to the pros. And sort of limiting the spots that you play definitely wasn't the best move. But I think these moves today are obviously not, like I said, the biggest. But I think there might be some juice here to maybe at least one of them.
All right, yeah, I love to hear that. And I honestly love the fact that Dave Dombrowski and this organization as a whole, they're committed to doing the fiddling on the roster, that they're not sitting there content, that they are constantly trying guys. It does feel like this Phillies team, and I get this is kind of a baseball thing universally, but it does feel like they end up with a lot of these quadruple A type guys with the Scott Kingerys that we're talking about, Derek Hall, and even Cody Clemens is an interesting one that I wanted to dig a little deeper in. I'm surprised he's not a guy that's, I guess, more of a lock to be in the mix, that I thought he was going to be the next name up, and it doesn't feel like he's being as viewed as positively within the Phillies organization as my honest read on what the situation would be. So what's your take on that? Do you think Clemens is a guy that's kind of getting buried or lost in the shuffle here, or do you still have hope that he is a guy who, when the cream rises to the top, he'll be a part of it?
Yeah, so my only thing with Cody is that he's basically blocked. Right? Like there's not really a reason to carry a guy that can play a ton of first base on your roster right now. Like obviously I mean, we all know we have Bryce.
Yeah.
Bryce is out there every single night at first base. If he got hurt, I think Cody would obviously get the call. But right now you have a guy like Weston Wilson who hits he hits left-handed pitching really well. Obviously, we saw last night had a really good night in Arizona. I think right now it's just kind of an unfortunate situation, but I think it's also very beneficial. It's nice to have a guy like that. It's good to be able to have a guy that you can go back to if you need him. He still rakes down in AAA, and it seems like the bat's always ready to get called up. Is it going to get called up a ton? No. But I mean, if you get the playoff time, right? Do you consider, right? Because if you have an outfield out there of in the playoffs at least, right? Hayes, Marsh, Castellanos, Rojas off the bench. Obviously, we know Rojas isn't going to be a power bat off of the bench. I don't think there's any secret behind that. But would the Phillies consider? Yeah, would the Phillies consider maybe demoting Weston Wilson and going to Cody Clemens in the playoffs for another left-hander? Maybe. That's something I don't think you'll obviously see yet. But I think you'll see Clemens at least one more time in the majors this season. I just think he's one of those guys that is just kind of sort of blocked. As far as the infield, obviously we know while Weston Wilson is more primarily of an outfielder, he does play the infield as well. He can play second. He can play even a little bit of third if he like if there's like a dire need. And then you have Edmundo Sosa, right? Edmundo Sosa's he ain't going anywhere. So that kind of backup second baseman, like we've seen from Clemens, there was the time obviously where Bryson Stott wasn't playing every day. He was playing a little bit of second Clemens, and then Edmundo was over at short. So he's just kind of blocked. But it's definitely nice to still have that guy ready. And I mean, if there is any other injury, he's definitely the next guy up.
Yeah, and you mentioned Edmundo Sosa. He's been really solid for this team, really throughout the entirety of his Phillies tenure. That I think he's a little bit more than just like a utility plug-and-play guy. That I think he gets labeled as a lot. So very cool there. And I don't want to wanted to go remiss here. Austin Hayes has been very good since coming to this Phillies team. To lay out the overall stats, that he's hitting .263 with the .677 OPS. And it's very clear that this Phillies team has belief in him. And they essentially has handed him this left field role. And he's a guy that has delivered, that we're seeing the production on the field with things here. So this is a huge opportunity for the Johan Rojas of the world, the Brandon Marshes of the world, to really step up and try and prove that they belong right in the same mix. Because it is clear to me that Austin Hayes is looked at very positively within this Phillies organization. And I don't think that's going to change, and even in this limited sample size. So these type of guys definitely need to step up during this stretch.
Yeah, and this is honestly a really big week for Marsh. I think Marsh sort of being able to. I mean, there's a good chance Marsh is out there every day for the next week.
Yeah.
If he can go out there and continue to hit lefties, because over the last 2 weeks, ever since he's sort of earned that in quotes starter job, he's hit lefties a lot better than he was beginning of the season. And listen, I know people like to look at the at bats, but he was given a fairly good amount of chances in the first few months of this season, and his strikeout rate was over 50%. Like he was struggling big time. So they've obviously worked on some things there. He's hit left-handed pitching a lot better. But real quick, I do want to go back and touch on that Edmundo Sosa thing
Hit me.
because it's funny. If you go back and you look at his stats from previous years in St. Louis, he's talked a lot about how just coming here, he felt very welcomed. He
Hmm.
felt home. He felt comfortable playing baseball again. Edmundo Sosa in St. Louis, he hit 245, 318, 350 with a 668 OPS and an 87 OPS plus. For anyone that doesn't know, OPS plus is basically so the average OPS plus in baseball is 100. That's like the even keel, whatever. So he was basically under average. He was at an 87 out in St. Louis. In the 3 years that he's been in Philadelphia, he has a 267 average, which is 22 points higher than St. Louis. He has a 312 on base percentage. He has a 456 slugging percentage, which is 100 points higher than it was in St. Louis. He has a 769 OPS, which is 100 points higher than it was in
Wow.
St. Louis. And he has a 110 OPS plus. So he's really turned from a fringe bench guy to a guy that can play nearly 3 times a week.
Yeah.
Um,
Bryson
and, and it's
Stott,
big
watch your
math.
back.
Exactly. And I mean, even he talked about it the other night, Stott. They asked him about not necessarily playing every day. And he was honest about it. He was like, dude, I know how good Mundo's playing. Like, I don't expect there to be. He said, I mean, obviously he wants to be out there for 162, but I think he knows and he's seen that that's not how it works. I mean, if listen, if you're a guy that has a 1,000 OPS or a 950 OPS, you're going to be out there every day,
Yeah.
right? But a guy like Stott, who's definitely going through a rut this year. I mean, obviously he plays the best defensive second base in all baseball, right? That's about as valuable as you can get. But Edmundo is going to be out there, and he deserves to be out there. Listen, I love Bryson Stott, but I want Edmundo Sosa to be out there a little bit in the playoffs.
Yeah.
He brings a bit of a spark. When there's lefties out there, he crushes left-handed pitching. So you're not going to see him a ton, but you're going to see him enough to the point where he's going to continue to make a name for
Yeah,
himself.
absolutely. Well, a lot going on with the Phillies right now. As we mentioned, with this flurry of moves, we're going to go a little deeper onto each one of these guys and how they can impact the Phillies on this next video. But appreciate each and every one of you guys for tuning into this one. Once again, make sure you're smashing that subscribe button if you have not already. Drop a like on this video, and I want to hear from you below. Are there any of these names that jump out to you? Let us know your thoughts, and we'll be talking with you next time right here on Phillies Digest. Peace.